Okay, The New World, new movie by Terrence Malick, who has a perfectionist reputation to rival that of Stanley Kubrick. He's made very few movies, and they're all perfect. I mean, Badlands, brilliant. Days of Heaven, look, Richard Gere can act. Thin Red Line, which is Saving Private Ryan for clever people. It's really hard when you... What were you going to say?
I was just going to say this is Pocahontas again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Okay, so this is now a retelling of Well, it's a retelling of the Pocahontas story. Although crucially, the character who plays Pocahontas, although she's called Pocahontas in the credits, is never referred to during the course of the movie as Pocahontas. She's just a sort of nameless figure, played by an actress who is either 14 or 15, depending on which story you believe. And, you know, a fairly astonishing performance for somebody so young. The story is, of course, the settlers turn up in Jamestown and meet the Algonquins, whose land they are later going to pilfer. But it being a Terrence Malick film, it starts off with shots of water, camera floating over water, the sound of Wagner. Looks like the Germans got here before anybody else. And then out of the trees come the naturals, as the explorers call them. Out of our boat comes Colin Hairy Farrell, and he and Pocahontas have a connection which is described almost entirely in voiceover and whispers. And I'm going to play you a clip because the whole of the first hour of the movie sounds like this.
You've put yourself in danger. You don't have to do anything else.
Now we've had complaints about mumbling before.
Yeah, but I mean there is mumblesome and then some, and this is mumbling to the max. Now, if you're familiar with Terrence Malick's work, which I'm sure you are, you know that he likes a voiceover. Does right, Terry?
Yes.
He really, you know, it's like in the middle of Thin Red Line, people are shooting at each other, and then this voiceover will say, "I never knew my mother." Well, in The New World, it is platitudinous to the max. It's things like, "You are our mother. We rise out of the soul of you. He's a tree. He sheltered me. She was a boat. I went for a row." I mean, it is that sort of stuff. Okay, now...
How can you hear what they're saying?
Well, because I was listening very carefully. And now, I really like Terrence Malick, and I went into the new... Because there's a quote in the poster which says, the greatest American movie of the year, which is taken from The Guardian, apparently, although, again, I don't think it was taken from Pete Bradshaw's reviews. And it is true that nobody does visual poetry like Terrence Malick. He does understand how to shoot water lapping on sand. He does understand how to shoot grass swaying in the breeze. Yeah, exactly. But there is a point when that isn't enough. Now, a couple of problems. First off, Pocahontas, when she meets the Colin Farrell character, he's meant to be the first white man she's ever seen. And yet, it looks like she's been shopping online at Monsoon, because frankly, that off-the-shoulder suede buckskin number that she's wearing...
We've all got them.
Exactly, and it's going to be in the high street. It's the very first Terrence Malick movie with the possibility of a fashionable, you know, a high street range tie-in. So, problem number one. Problem number two. There's only a certain amount of tree hugging that I can actually take seriously. But after 40 minutes of watching Colin and the woman who isn't called Pocahontas stroking trees...
Why are they stroking trees?
Well, because our mother is rising from the soul of the earth that is the thing that flew, cut to a shot of a seagull flying overhead. Now, in the Thin Red Line, okay, there was a whole thing going on about whilst war is raging, nature happens anyway. And it was really beautifully done. You get these terrible scenes of, you know, man mutilating each other. Meanwhile, snails are getting about their business, and, you know, cattle are walking the other way. And it was actually rather profound. This was just all too much, you know, lovely, romanticised naturalism for me. And I can't take Colin Farrell seriously. I think he just looks like a hairy old bozo. Although, I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong, Corianka Kilcher is clearly doing a very, very good job for such a young performer. There's only so much wide-eyed staring, looking up at the trees, dancing. There's a lot of dancing. There's an awful lot of completely out-of-context dancing, skipping along sand, swishing, and I just started to think, I'm sorry, something really has to happen now, because I'm starting to get cross. I'm starting to lose my patience with this. Now, after a certain amount of time, as if you know the Pocahontas story, you probably know this anyway, the Colin Farrell character, the John Smith character, goes away, and he is then replaced by Christian Bale, who's the guy who then, in inverted commas, marries Pocahontas and brings her back to England. At that moment, for me, the movie really picked up, because there's then a whole very interesting section about how Pocahontas then arrives in these incredibly well-cut lawns and British stately homes, and to her, England looks like the New World. But by that point, you have gone through an hour of, frankly, badly put together, fanciful, undisciplined whiffle. And I was really starting to think in the first place, this is worrisome, because I think, having seen this, you might actually go back and look at the Thin Red Line and go, those people who said it was a bit baggy, those people who said that what Malick does is every time something isn't cutting together, he cuts to a shot of some grass, or he cuts to a shot of a bird, or he cuts to a little more water lapping, or he has a little bit more Wagner. And I mean, that's enough Wagner, Ed. I wondered whether suddenly the veils had been lifted from my eyes, and actually he wasn't the genius that I thought he was. Now, on the strength of the second half of the movie, I would still recommend seeing it, because the second half, the bit with Christian Bale, the bit when they go back to England, is actually really good, and you think, this is it. He's back on form. As far as the first half is concerned, if I want pretty images of nature and people leaping and frolicking, I'll settle for Disney. Disney's Pocahontas is half the length and has got better tunes in it. I mean, it's not a bad film, partly because it has Eddie Marsan in it. Not enough Eddie Marsan in it, but he is in it, and he's, I think he's absolutely great. Partly because Christian Bale is very good, and partly because the last 40 minutes really remind you what it is about Malick that you love. But this, it is a case of, Mr. Emperor, your new clothes are waiting. And I hate to say this, but I really think that, having not put a foot wrong so far, Terry has leapt in with several feet